What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to a fresh installment of the things I learned this week. I'm going to be more or less picking up where I left off last time, where I was discussing the 5 element theory of personality in TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine. And what I wanted to talk specifically about today is another one of the elements, which I think encapsulates my personality and physical characteristics and just emotional tendencies or traits, which is the wood element. And the wood element in TCM is often seen as the type A personality. And for those of you who, like myself, may be familiar with the term but don't know exactly what that involves, the type A personality is essentially someone who is highly organized, ultra competitive, and has a strong sense of time urgency. And while I don't see myself as a very organized person, I think I'm more on the disorganized end of the spectrum, if anything. I definitely have a very competitive spirit, and I also place a lot of importance, a lot of the times, much to my dismay, on scheduling and structuring things, and getting things done in a timely manner. Efficiency, just work smarter, not harder. However, it kind of leads to perfectionism a lot of the times, which is another characteristic of the wood elements, as well as they can be seen as someone who's just a control freak or an overachiever as well. Like I mentioned, a lot of the times, over planning is more detrimental than, or planning strategically can be more detrimental than beneficial. For example, it basically can just lead to inaction. I wanted to make this video, or tried to make this video probably at least a handful of times. And I wanted all the conditions to be perfect, and I wanted to make sure I was able to convey all of the points that I thought would resonate with people. But in the long run, it's taken me way longer to shoot it than I hoped for, and there's definitely something to be said for doing something or acting on something when you have the inspiration and you can convey that authenticity. So I'll talk more about that later, but those are some of the characteristics of the wood element. They also, in addition to being just perfectionists or achievers, probably the most defining characteristic is to be always striving for growth. So you're either trying or working towards self-improvement, or you're working to increase your standing or your status in relation to society and those around you. So in terms of physical characteristics, oftentimes the wood element is tall and slender. They have a lean body type, kind of like a tree would be, and often you can see their veins appear through their skin, just like maybe you could think the roots of a tree. And I've had this issue forever, or I guess just this trait forever, going back to my childhood. Even as recently as like a couple weeks ago, it had been brought to my attention just how thin my skin was, or how pronounced my veins were. And while I have more confidence now and more self-esteem, it doesn't really get to me as much like it did when I was a kid. As a child, like you don't want it to be brought to your attention how you're different than other people, and feel alienated from the rest of the group. So like I said, even though I was self-confident about it when I was younger, and I'm still being told about it now, when I just started doing this research, and I learned that it's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it's actually typical for someone with my body type. It actually gave me a bit of peace of mind to know that it's characteristic for the wood personality, or the wood body type. So as I mentioned, wood elements are constantly striving for growth, and in order to feel fulfilled, they need to have the sense that they're progressing. And when you have impeded growth or chronic stress from an impeded growth as a wood element, it can really lead to frustration and just impatience with things not going according to plan. And you can come off as short-tempered a lot of the times to those around you, if it's coworkers or family or friends, whatever, just anyone in your general vicinity. Those chronic stresses or just the sense of impeded growth can result in liver and gallbladder disease. The liver and the gallbladder are the two organs that are associated with the wood element. And as you probably know, I mean, the liver and the gallbladder are the main organs or primary organs for digestion, breaking down all the nutrients that you put into your body, all the good things that nurture your body, but also expelling all of the toxins and poisons and junk that you're polluting your body with as well too. So when those organs have an imbalance and they're not functioning like they should, it can lead to diseases in the liver and the gallbladder, obviously, and the inability to digest fats, poor metabolism, obviously, kind of goes hand in hand with that, and then things like constipation as well, too. And then in terms of how it manifests physically, the wood element, when there's an imbalance, is more prone to things like headaches, specifically migraine headaches, high blood pressure, shoulder and neck tension, which is definitely something that I've dealt with for years, if not decades now, just from kind of when your plans aren't coming to fruition and you have that sense of impeded growth. I think the chronic stress kind of manifests in the tendency for me to tense up in my neck and my shoulders, and even your lower back, probably for some people too. So that's definitely something I've experienced. And then joint issues, so things like inflammation or just swelling in your joints, as well as your eyes. Swelling around your eyes, dark circles or bags under your eyes, that type of thing. So ultimately, an imbalance in the liver and the gallbladder can lead to emotional imbalances. Like I said, you think things aren't going according to how you laid them out, and it can, when it gets to an extreme level, there's that impeded growth, and the stress that you're harboring gets to an extreme level. It can manifest emotionally in terms of just low self-confidence or self-esteem, self-doubt, because I think you're more or less unsure or uncertain if your course of action that you so meticulously laid out or planned for was actually the right path. And that can basically snowball into the inability to make decisions, which for me, I'm on the mend now, but as much as probably 3 months ago, I would say, or maybe even less than that, a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, I was getting to the point of it being an extreme imbalance, I think, and it was just the littlest things that I couldn't make decisions between. For example, when I should shower over the course of the day on my day off. It was like, did I want to do it now so that my hair would look good for this video, or do I want to wait till after I do my like kung fu qigong workout in the middle of the afternoon, when I know that I'm gonna want to shower after that too. And it's just like every action or decision is a conflict, and you're incessantly mulling things over. And like I said, when you do that and you place such a strong or so much of an importance on structuring things out, it ultimately does lead to inaction and inexperience, because you're just wasting time stressing out over things that if you were to just delve into them and commit right away, they would be done and you wouldn't have to think about it anymore. And a lot of the times it's little things that don't aren't isn't gonna have any impact in your life in the long run. Like if I showered at 8:30 this morning versus at 2 o'clock, the next day, it's not gonna have any bearing on the course of action for the next day. So that's something that as a wood element you should watch and just be conscious of, because for me, like I said, it was kind of crippling at a certain point. It's like over planning can just kind of consume you and end in extreme indecisiveness and just worry or anxiety and the failure to commit to something, really. So I think the best thing to do is just to try and, when you nurture, I'll make recommendations right now for what you can do to nurture your liver and your gallbladder, just bring everything back into harmony. But in one sentence, I think the best thing you could do is really to just make decisions using logic. And when everything is working harmoniously, it's a whole lot easier to take your emotion out of it, and you can see the forest from the trees, so to speak, much easier. But use logic, but secondarily rely on and trust your intuition, so your gut instinct too. Those two in tandem can really go a long way in helping you just improve upon being decisive and knowing what course of action that you need to take. So, as I said, I was going to make some suggestions for how to bring your internal world back into balance, or just nurture your well-being. So the first one as a wood element would just be to spend time in nature, which obviously kind of makes a lot of sense. The wood element is associated with the color green, so just getting out among the trees, the greenery, breathing in some fresh air is specifically to me proven to be very beneficial. If you can do things where you're moving about in nature and you can get out into the grass and maybe not necessarily barefoot, but just to do things like grounding or yoga or even just a standing meditation, to kind of bring your internal and focus on your internal world, those type of internal exercises, to bring it into balance or connect with the natural physical external world, really benefits a wood element, specifically their organ functioning, but also, just like I said, your well-being and your peace of mind. You could also use the liver and the gallbladder acupressure meridians. So there's all sorts of videos on YouTube about specific acupressure points or acupuncture points on all sorts of different meridians and their respective benefits. But so I'm not going to really go into it in detail here, but just know that as a wood element, when you're feeling just imbalanced or out of harmony with nature, researching and using those two acupressure points or meridians, acupressure points on those meridians, can be really beneficial in terms of physical functioning, but just emotional well-being as well too. As I mentioned early on in the video, the striving for growth is probably the most defining characteristic for the wood element. So in light of that fact, having a job with the strong prospect of growth is something that you really need in order to thrive, or to feel fulfilled, I guess. If you're not working for yourself and you're working for a company or working for a paycheck or whatever, you have to have the opportunity, or you have to feel like you have the opportunity to increase your standing, be it either just a promotion or an improved title or position. You can't feel complacent in your work life, and you have to feel that you have the opportunity for progression. Like I said, that's something that's extremely important for a wood element. So that type of job certainly will help improve your well-being and just make you feel like you improve how you feel about your place in the world, I guess you could say. And finally, in terms of diet, I think a few things that you could do is to consume a diet that's primarily consisting of leafy green vegetables. So things, which obviously it makes sense if you're associating with trees and nature and the greenery, you want that type of diet that has all sorts of chlorophyll and those other nutrients and antioxidants and anti-inflammatory substances that are natural. So a diet of like kale and spinach, broccoli, either and even other cruciferous vegetables. I'd say like um, Brussels sprouts or cauliflower. All of that stuff is really going to be beneficial to the wood element, even though it's beneficial to everyone in general. But in particular, the wood element seems to um, see benefits from that type of diet. And secondarily, what you should be avoiding is things that have really bad fats and oils. So anything that's like a packaged good that has partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated oils added to it to increase the shelf life as a preservative, or things just fried foods that use vegetable shortening that have like soybean oil or partially hydrogenated cottonseed oil or canola oil. All of those things basically, in addition to causing inflammation in your joints for anyone, they really kind of gunk up your liver and your gallbladder and make it hard for you to digest anything, basically. Um, and beyond that, just in terms of mental clarity, I know that when I eat a lot of fried foods and stuff like that, I just seem to be function slower mentally in term and also physically. I feel like just kind of bloated and stuff after eating a lot of fried foods, like either just French fries or like potato pancakes and fried fish, for like a Friday night fish fry. So being able to cut those things out and focusing or just consuming more natural, specifically green foods. I mean, raw or cooked, it doesn't really matter. I would actually say cooked is probably more beneficial because you remove a lot of the oxalates from those veggies when you cook them, which that's another thing you could research. I'm not going to get into that here, but um, those type of more natural foods are just something that you want to focus on as a wood element in order to um, cure any type of imbalance that you might be feeling in terms of just emotionally or just physically too, just in terms of inflammation, like I said, or any tension or any sense of swelling. Get back to those anti-inflammatory natural green foods and you should be a whole lot better. And then I think basically that's pretty much it. The final thing I kind of wanted to mention too is just that I know that the Kobe 1984 era is shaping up to be difficult for everyone that I've talked to. It seems like everyone, is experiencing hardships out there because of many different various reasons. But I think it's difficult in particular for the wood elements because of how much uncertainty there is regarding the future and basically their predisposition towards planning. You know, to be someone who's basically the type A personality, planning everything out, structuring everything out, because of the uncertainty surrounding how many opportunities there are going to be, just in terms of like travel, but also just in terms of work opportunities 6 months from now. it can be extremely anxiety inducing and stress causing for the wood elements. I know me personally that my 2020 vision, forgive the pun there, but it's not going really anywhere according to what I had planned out for it. And it is largely because of travel restrictions. I had initially, like at the end of last year, I toured Colombia for a month, and I had a plan of at some point, probably later on this year, going back there and opening a hostel, mostly just for like backpackers, um, international backpackers, but more probably for locals that were traveling. Um, just because the place I wanted to open it, or the city I wanted to open it in or rent the property in, it's more off the beaten path in terms of just like commercial tourism. But the thing is now it's like tourism as an industry is basically fucking dead. And I think that's going to be the case for the foreseeable future, especially in those type of countries that are seen as lower income. People are scared as hell and they don't want to go, especially someplace like that where they think there's a higher chance of them, you know, of whatever happening. Let's just say that. So that seems like that's not going to be an option. So that kind of was something that I had on the back burner. It wasn't like my main um, goal or my main plan of attack for the coming year or anything, but it's definitely an opportunity that I think is now squandered. And in light of that fact, too, I think I'm basically drawing a line in the sand, and um, I'm going to basically use my moral fiber not to become a GE or GM human. And what that means is basically genetically engineered human. And what I'm alluding to is that I'm not going to take a vaccine if I don't absolutely have to. I'm not strapped down and held against my will and injected with a vaccine. I'm not going to take something like that I don't know what's in it and what alters my genes. And because of that fact, I already can tell that just because of, as a wood element, the way that I think I can see the future to a degree, or at least know what's coming, based on how things have played out to this point, I don't think there's going to be much opportunity, at least for travel, but even, like I said, for work opportunities for people who refuse to be vaccinated. So that's actually been very anxiety inducing in itself, beyond just the fact of like worrying over having to get a vaccine, but also just like the worry over what am I going to do to support myself, and what freedoms am I going to have as someone who is refusing to like put some artificial chemicals that we don't know what they are into my body. So um, there's probably a fair amount of people out there that specifically wood elements that are experiencing similar things to that as I am. And basically all I want to say, or the recommendation that I can give you, because it's what I'm doing myself, is to just, when you're planning and you're looking to the long term and trying to use your long term vision, I think the best thing you could do is really just focus on yourself, your own self improvement, and the matters that you have sole responsibility over, versus things that are open to external influence. Like I said, there's only so much that we can know about what opportunities there will be in the coming years, but if you're just focused on yourself, and I don't mean in a selfish way, I just mean if you focus on your own self-improvement and improving your skills and building up your network, whatever it is, just working on yourself and building your confidence will go a long way in serving you well for pretty much any situation that you find yourself in the future. And as a wood element too, it will just really help to make you feel at peace and fulfilled, and create the sense that you're progressing internally. So that's it for now, guys. I'd love to hear the feedback, and sit tight for the next video. All right, take care.